You know what's fascinating? Right now, as you're listening to these words, you're probably doing something you don't even realize you're doing. You're playing a game, several games actually, and these games are costing you everything, your peace, your joy, your very life, and you never even agreed to play them. Now here's where it gets interesting. I'm not talking about some abstract philosophical concept. I'm talking about specific patterns, specific habits of mind that are operating right now, in this moment, shaping how you experience reality. And the beautiful thing, the absolutely extraordinary thing, is that you can quit these games immediately, not gradually, not after years of meditation or therapy, immediately. Because once you see a game for what it is, once you recognize the trick, you can't be fooled by it anymore. The spell breaks, just like that. We're going to look at 7 of these games together. 7 patterns that the spiritually awakened soul simply stops playing. And when I say awakened, I don't mean someone sitting on a mountaintop in robes. I mean someone who sees clearly, someone who's recognized these games and walked away from them. So let's begin. Because what I'm about to show you isn't theory, it's about your actual experience right now. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Listen to that voice in your head. You know the one, it's whispering right now, there's not enough. Not enough money, not enough time, not enough love, not enough success. And because there's not enough, you must grab, compete, accumulate, protect what's yours before someone else gets it. This is the first game, the scarcity game. And here's what makes it so insidious. It feels completely real. It feels like you're just being realistic, responsible, practical. But watch what happens. You get the raise and within days you're worried about the next one. You achieve the goal and immediately a new goal appears, more urgent than the last. The finish line keeps moving because the race was rigged from the start. Why? Because the scarcity isn't out there in the world. It's in here, in how you're perceiving the world. Look at nature for a moment. Does a tree produce one seed, carefully rationed? No, it produces thousands of acorns, thrown out with wild abandon. Does the sun ration its light? Does the ocean count its waves? Nature operates on abundance, outrageous abundance. The scarcity you feel is a human invention, created by ideas of ownership and borders, and the notion that pieces of the universe can belong to isolated individuals. But you are not separate from this abundant universe. You are an expression of it. The same creative force that scatters stars across billions of light years is the force living through you. When you see through this, really see through it, your body relaxes. That anxious clutching releases. And suddenly you notice abundance everywhere, in the generosity of strangers, in the infinite variations of each moment, in your own creativity that expands rather than depletes when you use it. Here's the paradox. When you stop gripping from scarcity, things flow more easily. Not because the world changed, but because you're no longer wrestling with it. You're dancing instead. Now the second game is particularly vicious, comparison. Your neighbor buys a new Cadillac, and suddenly yours seems inadequate. Your colleague gets promoted, and you feel you've fallen behind. Someone's marriage looks perfect from the outside, and you wonder what's wrong with yours. But here's what you're missing. You're comparing your insides to their outsides. You know every doubt in your mind, every fear, every moment of confusion. You live with yourself around the clock. You see yourself first thing in the morning, unprepared, unpolished. But them, you only see their public presentation. That man in the expensive suit walking down the street, you think, there goes success. But you don't see the marriage falling apart, the debts he's hiding, the desperation behind his confident smile. You're comparing your complete, messy reality to his carefully constructed appearance. And comparison assumes there's some universal measuring stick for all lives. But who created this standard? A businessman in Manhattan measures success one way. A farmer in Iowa measures it completely differently. A musician, a monk, a mother. Each has their own metric. Yet we torture ourselves trying to live up to standards that have nothing to do with our actual nature. Your life is your life. This exact combination of your gifts and limitations has never existed before and never will again. So what are you comparing it to? I knew a man who spent 40 years measuring himself against his older brother's business success. 40 years of envy eating at him. And when his brother died suddenly, he confessed, "I wasted my entire life comparing when I could have been living." When you quit this game, all that energy hemorrhaging into envy becomes available for actually living. You discover what genuinely interests you, not what you think should interest you, and you can look at someone else's success and appreciate it without feeling threatened, because it's not a comment on your worth. The third game disguises itself as responsibility, living for the future. We map out 5-year plans, 10-year plans, we save for retirement, we schedule every hour, we try to control tomorrow as if life were a chess game where we can calculate every move. But here's the catch, the future never arrives. Think about it. When has the future ever come? You plan for it, worry about it, sacrifice for it, and when you finally reach that point in time, it's not the future anymore. It's now. It's the present. And if you've spent your whole life preparing for tomorrow, you've missed the only time that ever exists. I'll give you an example. You're listening to a Mozart symphony. What's the point? To reach the final chord as quickly as possible? Of course not. That would be absurd. The point is the music itself. Each note as it arises and passes. You don't listen to music for the ending. You listen for the listening. Life is the same. It's not about reaching some destination where you can finally relax after the degree, after the career, after retirement. There's always another after. You're always preparing for a tomorrow that recedes like the horizon. A farmer I knew once said something that struck me. I plan for the harvest, but I don't spend my spring anxiously worrying about autumn. I'm here, in the dirt, planting seeds, feeling the earth. His planning was light, practical, not this heavy burden of trying to control everything. When you quit this game, you're suddenly here, actually here, not mentally rehearsing next week or worrying about next year. And paradoxically, you become more effective because you're not operating from anxiety. Your decisions improve, your creativity expands, you're present to your actual life instead of constantly rehearsing for some future performance. Here's the fourth game, and it's subtle because it sounds so virtuous, the self-improvement trap. We're obsessed with becoming better, reading books on personal development, attending lectures, following disciplines designed to perfect our character, always working on ourselves, always trying to upgrade who we are. But look beneath this noble pursuit. The entire premise is that you, as you are right now, are not acceptable. You are deficient, inadequate, fundamentally broken, and if you just follow the right program, you'll finally fix yourself and become worthy. I knew a man who spent 20 years trying to improve his character. He studied all the philosophers, practiced meditation, followed strict moral codes, and he was miserable. Why? Because beneath all that striving was one message: you're not enough as you are. He was at war with himself, split between who he was and who he thought he should be. That internal division created the very suffering he was trying to escape. Here's what's counterintuitive. Spiritual awakening isn't about becoming more. It's about becoming less. Not adding qualities, but subtracting. Letting go of all the ideas about who you should be so you can discover who you actually are. Think of a gold statue covered in mud. You don't need to improve the gold. The gold is already perfect. You just need to remove the mud, the accumulated conditioning, the judgments, the shoulds. When you quit trying to be someone you're not, something remarkable happens. Your genuine interests emerge naturally. Your authentic voice develops without effort. You're no longer forcing yourself into some mold. You're like a tree that doesn't agonize over growing. It simply grows according to its nature. Because that's the problem. You can't control outcomes. You can control your effort, your care, your integrity. But results depend on timing, circumstances, other people's choices, infinite factors beyond your influence. A potter I knew worked for years perfecting his craft. Pots would crack in the kiln, he'd shrug and start another. His joy was in the making, the feel of clay, the turning wheel, the dance between his hands and the material. Whether they sold was irrelevant. He wasn't attached to outcomes. Compare that to someone who writes a book solely for it to become a bestseller. The writing becomes torture because it's burdened with expectation. Every sentence carries the weight of hoped-for results. The work itself is lost. Watch children playing in a garden. They build stick houses that fall down. They chase butterflies they'll never catch. They're completely absorbed in the activity itself, not calculating outcomes. That's the state we've lost. Full engagement without outcome dependence. When you quit needing things to go a certain way, your whole relationship with life shifts. You're no longer on an emotional roller coaster. You can give something complete attention while remaining unattached to results. You plant seeds without demanding to control how they grow. Failure becomes information, not identity. Success becomes a pleasant surprise, not the source of your worth. You're free to take risks, experiment, fail spectacularly, all while maintaining inner equilibrium. Now we go deeper. The illusion of separateness. From birth, you've been taught you're separate, an isolated individual, distinct from everything else. You're in here, the world is out there, and there's a clear boundary between them. But where do you actually end and the world begin? At your skin. Your skin exchanges molecules with air constantly. The oxygen you breathe becomes your blood. Food becomes your cells. Your cells die and return to earth. You're not a fixed entity, you're a process, a flow, a pattern, in constant exchange. Go deeper. Your thoughts, personality, sense of self, where did they come from? Your parents, culture, language, every conversation you've had, every book you've read, you didn't create yourself in isolation. You emerged from the entire context of existence. You didn't come into this world, you came out of it. Like a wave from the ocean, like an apple from a tree. You're not separate from the universe. You're what the universe is doing right here, right now. Every atom in your body was forged in a dying star, billions of years ago. The carbon in your bones, the iron in your blood, all created in stellar furnaces and scattered across space. You are literally made of stardust. You are the universe looking at itself. When this recognition hits, not intellectually but viscerally, the narrative of separateness collapses, and with it, so much suffering. Because most problems stem from this illusion. Anxiety from feeling like an isolated individual defending against a threatening world. Loneliness from believing we're fundamentally separate. Greed from thinking we must grab our portion. Violence from seeing others as truly other. But when you recognize interconnectedness, everything changes. Harming others is like harming yourself, because they aren't separate from you. Compassion arises spontaneously. You recognize yourself in every face. The other is not other. The outside is not outside. It's all one seamless dance, and you are that dance. Finally, the deepest fear, impermanence. Nothing lasts. Everything you love will disappear. Every relationship ends. Every body decays. Every moment dies as it's born. And we hate this. We fight it with everything we have. Photographs, monuments, insurance policies, legal contracts, all attempting to create permanence in an impermanent world. But you're fighting the nature of reality itself, like standing in a river, trying to stop the water from flowing. Here's what you're missing. Impermanence isn't the problem. Your resistance to it is. Why are cherry blossoms beautiful? Because they bloom for weeks, then fall. If they bloomed forever, would they move your heart? The Japanese celebrate this whole festival devoted to the transience of blossoms. Beauty and impermanence are inseparable. Why is music moving? Because each note dies as the next is born. If one note played eternally, it wouldn't be music, it would be torture. The arising and passing away is what makes it music. I've watched thousands of sunsets, each one unique, unrepeatable, gone forever. That's what makes each precious. If sunsets lasted forever, I'd stop noticing them. A Zen master said, "The flower that blooms in adversity is most beautiful, but every flower blooms in adversity. The adversity of time, of inevitable decay. yet they bloom fully anyway, holding nothing back. When you embrace impermanence, truly accept the transient nature of all things, you become radically present. If this moment is fleeting, it becomes infinitely precious, exactly as it is. You stop postponing joy, you stop waiting for permanent security that never comes. The meal tastes better when you're not worried about it ending. The conversation is richer when you're not taking it for granted. The embrace is more precious when you acknowledge its finite nature. This acceptance brings profound peace. You're no longer at war with existence, you're flowing with change rather than against it, dancing with life instead of wrestling it. The illusion of scarcity that makes you clutch and grasp when abundance surrounds you. The tyranny of comparison that wastes your unique life trying to be someone else. The obsession with future planning that causes you to miss the only moment that exists. The burden of self-improvement that keeps you at war with yourself. The grip of outcome dependence that holds your peace hostage to circumstances. The narrative of separateness that creates most human suffering. And the fear of impermanence that prevents you from fully living. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, all right, I see these patterns, I recognize them, but what do I actually do about it? How do I live differently? And this is the crucial point, the point where most teachings leave you hanging. So, let me be very clear about what happens when you truly see through these games. First, understand that seeing is the solution. Not doing, but seeing. When you genuinely recognize an illusion for what it is, it loses its power automatically. You don't need a technique to stop believing in something you've seen through. If I show you how a magic trick works, you don't need a method to stop being fooled by it. The recognition itself is the liberation. But let's be practical. How does this recognition translate into your daily life? When you catch yourself in the scarcity game, and you will catch yourself because these patterns run deep, pause. Just pause. Look around. Notice the air you're breathing freely. Notice that your heart is beating without charging you. Notice the abundance of sensations, sounds, possibilities in this very moment. The pause itself breaks the spell. You're not trying to convince yourself of abundance. You're simply noticing what's actually here when you're not looking through the scarcity lens. When comparison arises, and it will, ask yourself a simple question. Whose life am I actually living right now? Not whose life should you be living, whose life are you actually living? Yours. Only yours. This isn't selfishness, it's sanity. You have one life, this life, and it's being lived right now. When you recognize this, comparison becomes absurd, like a fish envying a bird for flying. When you find yourself lost in future planning, anxiously trying to control tomorrow, bring yourself back with a simple recognition. The future is a thought happening now. That's all it is, a thought occurring in the present. You're not actually in the future. You can't be. You're here, thinking about the future. When you see this clearly, planning becomes lighter. You can make sensible preparations without the heavy burden of anxiety. Regarding self-improvement, here's the shift. Instead of asking, how can I become better? Ask, what am I not accepting about myself right now? The question reveals the game. You're already complete. The spiritual journey isn't about arriving somewhere else. It's about recognizing where you already are. This doesn't mean you stop growing or learning. It means you stop growing from a place of deficiency and start expressing from a place of wholeness, with outcome dependence. The practice is simple but profound. Engage fully, release completely. Give whatever you're doing your complete attention and care. Then let go of needing it to turn out a specific way. It's like shooting an arrow. You aim carefully, you release fully, and then the arrow's flight is no longer yours to control. Your peace cannot depend on where it lands. The recognition of interconnectedness, of non-separation, fundamentally changes how you move through the world. When you truly see that harming another is harming yourself, that their well-being is inseparable from yours, ethics becomes natural rather than forced. You don't need commandments telling you not to harm others when you viscerally recognize they're not separate from you. Compassion isn't something you cultivate. It's what spontaneously arises when the illusion of separation dissolves. And impermanence, perhaps the deepest teaching of all. When you truly embrace the transient nature of all things, each moment becomes sacred. Not in some religious sense, but in the sense of being unrepeatable, precious, fully itself. You stop postponing life. You stop waiting for conditions to be perfect. You recognize that this moment, exactly as it is your life happening. Here's what I want you to understand. This isn't about achieving some special state. It's not about becoming enlightened in some dramatic way. It's about seeing clearly what's actually happening, rather than what you've been told is happening. It's about waking up from the dream of these games and recognizing the reality that was always here. The awakened soul isn't someone who has reached some distant goal. It's someone who has recognized that there's nowhere to reach, nothing to acquire, no one to become. They've quit the games not through effort, but through seeing. And in that seeing, they're free to actually live, not someday, not after achieving certain conditions, but right now in this moment, in this breath, in this mysterious, beautiful, fleeting experience of being alive. You don't need years of practice to see through an illusion. You just need to look clearly, honestly, without the filter of what you've been told to see. And when you do, when you really do, something extraordinary happens. Not to you, but as you. Life stops being a problem to be solved and becomes a dance to be danced. And you realize you've been dancing all along. You just forgot to notice. This is what I'm offering you. Not a technique, not a method, not another self-improvement program to add to your collection. Just an invitation to see, to recognize the games, to notice what happens when you stop playing them. The freedom you're seeking isn't in the future. It's not after you've achieved enough or improved enough or figured enough out. It's here, right now, in the simple recognition of what's true. And what's true is this: you are enough. You've always been enough. The universe doesn't make mistakes, and you are an expression of that universe. So quit the games. Not gradually, not eventually, immediately, through seeing them for what they are, and discover what was always here, hidden beneath all the noise and striving and fear. This moment, this breath, this irreplaceable experience of being alive, that's it, that's everything. And somehow, impossibly, miraculously, it's enough. Welcome home.